Alright, in the final part of our Chapter 17 discussion, we're going to talk a bit more about retailer strategy as a major influencer on consumer behavior and a major outcome of consumer behavior. So cash, check, credit, Venmo? Does it matter? What do you think? Does your payment method matter? Yes, and not only just in the sense of how it works, but also on paying, higher for forms that are more material, tangible to a customer. So for many consumers, cash is more significant than using credit because we are loss averse. Handing over the bills and coins is processed differently than swiping the card and can actually influence us on the type of purchases we make. So it depends, though, on the person's exact type of payment, but you get the general idea, though, that there are a lot of influences that come into play. So just a reminder of our 4 central P's that make up a retailer strategy. So here are 3 major considerations for retailers when crafting their strategy. So first, you have to think in terms of the attributes affecting consumers' outlet selection. Things like image, retailer brands, advertising, location and size. Next, the shoppers themselves have different characteristics that we have to account for. Finally, the shopping experience is significant enough in its own right that it gets its own part. And this isn't an exhaustive list. This is just an overview of major factors you can use to build out your analysis. So part 1. Retail outlet selection involves a comparison of the alternative outlets on consumers' evaluative criteria. In effect, these are the potential attributes consumers may recall and consider when deciding among different outlets. So, examples include outlet image, retailer brands, retail advertising, actual outlet location and size, or perceived, market category, and market norms. The list goes on. So here are examples of how the image of the retailer can be evaluated. So these images are both examples from Cabela's, a store like Bass Pro Shop that caters to outdoors enthusiasts, fishing, camping, hunting, etc. In what ways might these dimensions be useful for Cabela's, as opposed to, say, other locations, maybe versus a 99-cent store, a mom-and-pop nursery or craft supply? Consider how it matters that they may have both outlets or channels at their disposal. A trend that remains powerful is the use of store brands. We covered this a bit in branding during Chapter 9, but retail locations are increasingly both capitalizing on brand equity and bolstering their brand through offering store-branded products that are, of course, exclusive. It used to be rare for stores to develop their own brands. Sears and Wards were an exception, but increasingly retailers such as Walmart and Target and many Costco are developing and promoting high-quality brands with either the store's name or an independent name. The key to the success of store brands is high quality at a reasonable price. Based on what you know about consumers, how might offering a store brand aid an outlet? Especially in terms of, say, which outlet to go. So maybe a few examples. Segmentation. Certain consumers have different needs based on their behavior. Some may value their frugality, be less loyal to a brand, and want lower prices or good value. So in general, you might be fulfilling their needs. Consumers' perception of choice. Because most consumers like a certain extent of choice, so broader ranges tend to be preferred. Consumer learning. This reinforces the brand. It's an additional touch point of the brand, not just I need toilet paper, I need to go to a grocery store, but I'm out of toilet paper, I need to go to this grocery store in essence. So in sum, another point of differentiation many retailers are using is offering store brands to impact the outlet selection and purchase stage. Location and size, of course, are important in most store choices. All else equal, Consumers generally select the closest store. Keep in mind this is relative, so it can be closest as in closest to home, your work, or perhaps your route to somewhere. Some consumers like distance, but that's an exception, which is often related to other factors like hedonic consumption, where it's special, it's part of the journey. Next is outlet size. Generally, customers prefer larger outlets over smaller outlets, but of course, largest is relative, so some may prefer smaller outlets, say CVS, gas stations, and mini-marts stress their size as a convenience versus, say, going to a warehouse store. So Smart & Final can likely boast warehouse-style products without the warehouse-style location. What we find is the retail attraction model or retail gravitation model is used to calculate the level of store attraction based on store size and distance from the consumer. Here's a final example of how outlet choice continues to be influenced by the prior consumer decision stages. In this case, information search will impact what particular outlets garner more attention. So we've already discussed how search engines already allow firms to try to reach out to consumers earlier than ever. Google and Kia have partnered on a new tool, Chat to Message, where this little option here is now available, which will automatically let you text to your nearest Kia dealer. Google already gives you the options such as calling and clicking the address link to open up the Maps app. So it's an integrated addition to an existing larger Google product. Google isn't the only one doing this too. Google, WeChat, and other messenger apps are also starting to make it easier for consumers to chat with an organizational representative. Kian is one of many chat bots. A chatbot is a program that can simulate conversation with a consumer. Even most consumers have similar problems and word use. In other words, it is better at reading using more natural language. So we have ones, for example, from 1-800-Flowers.com, Evernote, and more. If you want to learn more about that, Sprout Social has a nice walkthrough on Chatbox, walkthroughs, and others. So the characteristics specific to consumers can also impact outlet choice, so the specific shoppers themselves. So of course we know things like shoppers are more loyal, some have greater risk they must bear or are more risk averse, some have greater need for convenience, some are more likely to be influenced by advertising, money, resource issues. Lots of different examples, all from our past chapters, but you can see how they can matter. So some consumers have practice levels of involvement in shopping. Remember, shopping is a practice, so there are many types of shopping and attitudes toward each. So are you going for fun? Is it an emergency, diversion, routine, as a social bonding moment? All of that matters. You can likely imagine that for some of us, we may be very consistent as bargain seekers or apathetic shoppers. However, for many of us, we can actually imagine how the type of product, outlet, co-shoppers, or other circumstances will impact our shopping orientation. So recall, some consumers are more susceptible to risk, for example, or are more risk averse. So, for example, social costs, harm to your social standing or relations, such as the book notes, wearing or using something embarrassing to your friends. Some feel they have lower social standing, or just getting to know these people, so may feel more likely to bear the brunt of a social cost. Financial costs, harm to your monetary condition, so poorer consumers have less ability to bounce back from a larger expenditure. Time costs, harm of wasted time. Certain consumers are more time poor. A poorly designed outlet where customers can't find what they need means a greater likelihood of abandonment. Effort costs, so mental or physical exertion. Certain consumers have higher sensitivity or less opportunity. You can imagine how, again, a poorly designed outlet can aggravate this. Physical costs, so the physical harm. So certain consumers of products can create actual physical harm. Consumers may see the location of an outlet or sense other customers as dangerous. Often, many of these risks often intersect. So your book has examples of how economic and social risks can intersect. This picture, cheaper per gallon, but will the lines be too long? Lots of things to consider. So we discussed how organizations are on a race to differentiate as they continue to get better at making up for differences that competing outlets excel in. Now let's see how outlets may differentiate by serving the needs of their competitors had handled, but in new ways. Here we have Amazon Go, an in-store food shopping location, and Amazon Prime Now, a same-day delivery service. In this case, retail continues to go into many different directions as technology improves and companies can better serve particular needs. Both of these allow consumers access to groceries and other consumables. On the one hand, we have Amazon Go, which is a store location, while we also have Amazon Prime Now as a same-day delivery service. So what types of consumers might be interested in this? How might each address consumer risk? Now the next section we'll go into is the shopping experience itself. It's extensive enough as part of the retailer's strategy that it gets its own section. So take care.